You'll hear an update from Mark on Honor the Future campaign and how that's going, and lots of good news in there. And then you'll have an opportunity to hear about the CAVALIER Opportunity Fund. And it's something that I think you'll find to be very interesting. I do want to introduce the folks who are here from the CAVALIER Opportunity Fund. We have Kenyon Bonner, who is Vice President and Chief Student Affairs Officer. And Kenyon will lead us in the discussion on the CAVALIER Opportunity Fund here in just a few minutes. And during that discussion, we'll hear from two student recipients, Lucas Lehman and Abel Alexander. So thank you all for being here today on behalf of Vice Chairman John. And we have all of our members here today, Dan Brody, Bert Ellis, we have Paul Harris, Marvin Gillum, David Webb, Doug Wetmore, and Robert Hardy ex officio. So on behalf of all of them, welcome and thank you. And now I'd like to turn this over to Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the board. Thank you, Mr. Director, for the opportunity to be here today. As LF said, I'm going to hit on three key topics in this meeting today. The third point is the point of the CAVALIER Fund, but the first two, the first one is an update of where we stand fiscal year to date philanthropically and also in the campaign. And the second is more of an update on alumni and donor engagement. And we also have an exciting announcement to share as part of that. So I'm going to try to be brief today so we leave plenty of time for Kenyon and our students. But to jump right to it, as we look at fiscal year to date, as far as total commitments, as of today, we have crossed $475 million in total commitments so far since July 1 of last year. That's slightly above our pace from last year and it's a little bit over 25% higher than our 5-year average in total commitments for this point of the year. We also had a very strong start to the calendar year and the start of quarter 3. While February numbers are still being finalized, in January across grounds, our total commitments were up 135% for the month of January for a total of $55 million. To put some more detail on that, our normal numbers for the month of January are about 27. And that wasn't just made up of one gift, but a variety of gifts, and we're very proud of that as well. I think overall, as you look at the $475 million number for this fiscal year, I think it's still staggering that we're ahead of pace, not just over 5-year average, but over year to year. We have not had a $50 million gift or more this year, and we've had one of those the last couple years. So the fact that we're at that point without a $50 million or more commitment is great. We've had a couple commitments of 20 or 25 million. But I think the biggest driver of that has been overall growth of gifts. So if you look at gifts of $1 million or more, last year was the first year the university ever had 100 gifts of $1 million or more in one fiscal year. And as of today, we're at about 80 gifts of $1 million or more since June 30, with obviously a few months to go. So I think things are going well. That's also, when you think about the 80 number, that's about 40% ahead of what our 5-year average is on gifts of $1 million or more here by the end of February. So a lot of hard work, particularly thankful for our donors and those who have been extremely generous. Also a lot of hard work around the grounds from the people on my team, from the foundations, from the deans, et cetera. And I think that's what's just helping us continue to outpace our numbers. Beyond total commitments, I do want to talk about a few other financial numbers that I usually present to the board and the committee on. First is philanthropic cash flow. I know we had a little bit of discussion this morning. Doug talked about cash flow, so I'll hit on cash flow here from philanthropy. Also, the continued advancement of our work on bicentennial scholarships. So when you look at philanthropic cash flow, as a reminder, that is all cash in the door, whether that's pledge payments, individual gifts, realized bequests, et cetera. We are now over $300 million for the year in philanthropic cash flow. That's 12% ahead of last year and about 7% ahead of our 5-year average. As you look at the Bicentennial Scholarship Fund, since we last met in December, we've had an additional $14 million in commitments in the Bicentennial Scholarship Program since early December. That takes our total, when you include matching funds and private philanthropy now to about $725 million in total impact for scholarships across grounds in this campaign. Again, a bit more granularity there. While it's 14 million, that is actually 45 new endowments since early December tied to scholarships. So not only the dollar amount, but when you think about individual endowments, the Bicentennial Scholarship Program is now up to over 710 individual and scholarship endowments that have been created to support our students across the grounds. We're going to hear more about the CAVALIER Fund here in a few minutes, but from a philanthropic standpoint, when you include matching funds and also private philanthropy, that's at about $12 million right now. And that's we rolled this out here about a year or so ago. So we're seeing good progress there. I would say particularly with parents of current students, a lot of them are very interested about supporting this so other students may have the experience that their children have as well. Beyond philanthropic numbers, I did mention I want to talk a little bit about alumni engagement and also participation rates. But before I do that, I want to call out one particular school for some exciting news here today. If you look in your briefing materials, every time I provide an update of where each school and unit stands against their goal and where they are, where almost all of them have hit goal. We have a few more to go, spending a lot of work on that right now. But I do want to congratulate the college and the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, who just recently surpassed their $750 million goal in the campaign. And I'm thankful that Krista and both Gene Schutt could be here with us today, and would like to ask the board for a round of applause for their efforts. In addition to hitting the $750 million number for the college and the College Foundation, I do want to bring out a little factoid here, and I'm sure if I'm wrong, the dean will correct me, but I think there's an impressive point here that really needs to be amplified to this board and to the broader community, and that is the success the college and the College Foundation have had around raising money for graduate education. This has been a long-term goal. It was a goal of Ian's when he was the dean. It continues with Krista. But when you think about the work that they've done here, this is very hard money to raise. As someone who was formerly a fundraiser in arts and sciences, this is tough money to raise. But we've had a lot of support, including from Mr. Now, to continue to grow this area of the college. And to put the numbers on it, if you think about it, for the first 130, it took us 132 years to reach a $100 million endowment within arts and science for graduate education. And by the end of the calendar year, or maybe by the end of the fiscal year, if we have a little bit of luck, that number will be doubled. So it took 132 years to get to 100 and a couple years to get to 200. So special congratulations to the dean and to Gene for that. I would also be very remiss if I didn't say a few words about Gene. He doesn't know I'm doing this, and I'm sure is going to be very embarrassed. But many of you know Gene. He's been the president of the College Foundation for over 15 years. He's been an amazing colleague, a great partner, just a tremendous university citizen, and also a very good friend of mine. Gene will be stepping down as the president of the College Foundation this summer to retire, but I can't tell you the impact that Gene has made on both the college and our university. So I'd like to ask the board to join me in a round of applause for Gene. Now getting on to some of the broader things I wanted to mention, as this board has heard from me on numerous occasions, one of our goals in this campaign was to hit 20% undergraduate alumni participation by the end of the campaign. We've talked about this before. Growing alumni participation, especially at undergraduate levels, has been very hard around the country. And last year, for the first time, we hit 19% undergraduate alumni participation. It's still got a road ahead of us, but I'm happy to say that as of right now, we're tracking 12% ahead of where we were at this point last year. So we're not quite at 20% yet, but we're hoping over the next few months that we'll be able to hit that number. In addition to that, I think one of the ways that has been so helpful to us in growing participation has really been about elevating the event experience for our alums and friends, whether they be here on grounds or around the country. And when you look at the number of events the central team has planned for events around for the president, for others, for athletics, We've done 685 events so far this year and had 35,000 registrations for those events. That's up 15% year over year. If you go back a couple years ago, we were planning about 1,000 events over 12 months, but now we're seeing about 20 to 30% growth in those. So it's a lot of work that we have to do. But when you think about the number of people that we're able to engage, we've decided this year, with it being the last year of the campaign, to have a significant roadshow, allowing alums to engage with the president, also with Peter Grant, the chair of our campaign. We've done 6 events in different cities around the country. We have one coming up in San Francisco in a couple weeks, but we've had about 1,500 people attend those events. So it's been a great way for our alumni and friends to hear more about not only our goals and priorities, but also our ambitions as we go forward. The exciting news I have to share today is regarding a goal that I will admit has kept me up at night for a while. And that was a goal we set around number of individual donors in this campaign. So several years ago, we decided that we needed a participation goal for this campaign as far as number of individual donors. Why it kept me up at night is when you consider the number of living alumni we have. We have about 275,000 living alumni, and we set a goal of 250,000 individual donors. And I think my team can attest by the number of and volume of emails that I sent late at night for the last 6 months asking where we stood. This was something that I thought was going to be a really, really hard thing to hit. But I'm thankful to say that as of a couple weeks ago, we did surpass the 250,000 individual donor number, which I think is an excellent testimony to the way that people feel about our university and where we're going in the direction we're going. So that was a big win. We're now at 252,000 individual donors. Not that we're counting granularly, but we are paying very close attention to that. So that is a big win, and we're going to be announcing that here shortly. You know, before we turn things over to Kenyon, I want to say a special thank you to my team and the team across grounds who really worked on that number. It took a lot of creativity to get there. As I've said before, the number of participation rates across higher education philanthropy in the country have been declining for about 20 years. So the focus of this took a lot of creativity. I'll give it a small example of this. If you'd asked me a couple years ago if I thought several thousand people would make a gift to get a pair of UVA socks, I would have told you were nuts. We had almost 5,500 individuals make a gift to get a pair of UVA socks. Those micro campaigns don't always draw a lot of total dollars, but they do draw a lot of participation, and not just in acquiring new donors, but some of these micro campaigns we've found are really helpful in trying to retain donors or bring new donors back into the fold. I'll give an example of this. Just a couple days ago, we were running a micro campaign for one of the reunion years, and we had someone give to one of these who hadn't given to the university in 60 years. So they are very important, even though they're not always focused on top line growth, but about engaging people in the university. So with that concludes my report. I do just want to say a special thank you to our alumni and donors and friends who have been extremely generous, to President Ryan for his vision and his inspiration, and also to this board. This has been a team effort, and we're not done yet, but we're very thankful for all that you've provided us. So happy to take any questions before turning over to Kenyon.
Questions, Mark?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Mark, do you all track after the 6-city tour that you've been on, what the uptick is in giving right after that? Like if somebody were marketing a new drug, for instance,
Sure.
they would look and see how much the
Sure.
prescription rate. Do you all do that?
Yeah, we do. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, Dr. Long, but what I would say is one of the things that we've started doing more recently is also following up with people immediately after those events, which we didn't do as much of in the past. And I think that has generated a lot of buzz and smaller gifts as well for that. Something else that we've started to do, not for those large events, but also for a number of other events, is actually ask for a donation when people register. That was a bit of a controversial topic at first. Do we even ask, whether it be $5 or $25? But that has been an extremely successful tactic for us, just as far as people understanding something helps the cause. But we do, if you want more, I can share it with you later.
Other questions?
I'm wondering with the 252,000, it's an amazing number. Do you track like how much per donor that works out to?
Yeah, I mean, we do. I would say one of the interesting statistics, I think, Mr. Kennedy, as we think about this is we talk a lot in this meeting about the number of $1 million donors that have driven the campaign. If you think about the total amount, which I'll just share here in a second, the total amount for the campaign, 97% of the total gifts have come from gifts of $10,000 or less, and 94% are from $5,000 or less. So again, we talk about the big numbers because of the campaign, but this really has been a team effort. I did kind of bury the lead. I forgot one thing, where we stand in the campaign. So as of today, we're at $5.7 billion in the overall Honor the Future campaign. So again, thank you to the board and really appreciate everything you've provided to us.
So let me say to Mark and his staff, and to Jean and Krista, President Ryan and staff, a very special thank you at this point for all that you've done to date and all that I know you will do in the last few months as we approach the end of the campaign. And a special thank you to all the 252,000 people who've participated and given this in this campaign. So thank you all, and a round of applause for all of you. The continued success of the Bicentennial Matching Program and the Cavalier Opportunity Fund highlight the tangible impact of our fundraising efforts on one of the university's most important priorities. And that priority is accessibility and affordability for our students. And so I'm delighted now to turn the floor over to Kenyon to tell us more about the Cavalier Fund and how it is broadening opportunities for our university students. Kenyon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about the CAV Fund. I will give a basic overview of the Cavalier Fund, and then I'll hand it over to Abel and Lucas to talk about their experiences with the fund. One of the things that I'd like to do is first introduce Michelle Baer. I think she was introduced earlier, but she's the director of our Who's First office. And I asked her to join me today. Who's First is our hub for our first generation and limited income students. And that office is responsible for managing the Cavalier Fund, Michelle and her talented staff. As many of you are aware, I began my role serving as VP for Student Affairs over a year ago. And during that time, I've spent quite a bit of time with President Ryan. And with any new boss, over time, you begin to learn their idiosyncrasies. Don't worry, President Ryan. I've seen President Ryan excited several times. And typically, it's about running with students or the Yankees. Or if he sees a Boston Red Sox fan. But my favorite moment was seeing his level of excitement maybe a month ago when I told him that student participation in the Cavalier Fund had exceeded our projections for the fall semester, for the entire year by the end of the fall semester. And for me, that moment represented President Ryan seeing his vision to create the Cavalier Fund, a fund that provides opportunities for more students to engage in the full UVA experience realized. It was a vision to provide opportunities for students who often make decisions to not participate in what we would consider transformative outside the classroom experiences because the opportunity cost is too high or they simply don't have the money to pay for it. Said another way, the CAV Fund for short was established to ensure that every undergraduate student has access to similar holistic educational experiences while attending UVA, regardless of their financial resources. And this includes access to activities not usually covered by other student funding resources, such as extracurricular activities, student recreational experiences, CIO, fraternity and sorority membership, service opportunities, and spring break opportunities. Now, we recognize that these types of activities are meaningful to students and often contribute significantly to the overall student experience they enjoy at UVA. But incidental costs may prevent some students from taking full advantage of these opportunities. And that's why the Cavalier Fund provides eligible students with the opportunity to apply for and receive grant funding of up to $1,000 per academic year to support their interest and participation in co-curricular activities that supplement the university's academic program. The Cavalier Fund is open to currently enrolled undergraduate students at the UVA main campus. Additionally, to be eligible, recipients must have current demonstrated financial need per student financial services. So you might be asking, how can these funds be used? Once eligibility is met, support from the Cavalier Fund can be used to defray student costs for a variety of activities and experiences. These include associated costs for membership in student organizations, participation in enrichment activities sponsored by university offices or departments, and participation in UVA recreational activities such as group fitness classes, intramurals, and outdoor activities, and also participation in service opportunities. This pie chart illustrates the areas where Cavalier Fund disbursements were distributed during the fall semester 2024. I think it's worth noting that Cavalier funds are dispersed to the organization or the office or the agency sponsoring the program, service, or the experience. And to ensure the Cavalier Fund continues to meet anticipated student needs, we continue to work toward our goal to raise $30 million for its endowment. As Mark Luellen reported, we've seen a total impact of $12 million toward the Cavalier Fund. We're grateful for all of our donors and all those folks who've joined us in supporting our students in this way. I want to talk about a little bit of the funding highlights. In terms of funding requests from students, there were 182 student funding requests for support in the fall, and the approval rate was nearly 75%. More than $95,000 was distributed in total, and the average payment for each student was $669 per student. Student support was distributed to a number of different activities and experiences, including conference fees such as the Veteran Students of America, travel expenses for students participating in conferences or hackathons, and membership dues for several student CIOs and fraternities and sororities. And although I don't have a slide here with numbers for last year, I can note that the amount dispersed increased, as did the number of students who received funding. This seems to indicate to us that the Cavalier Fund and word about it is spreading throughout grounds. I can also share that student requests for support and distributions have continued at a healthy pace this year. Michelle Bear informed me last week that as of last week, we had dispersed most of our funds for the spring semester for a total of $113,000 just this year, just in the spring. This slide provides a global view of who's received support from the Cavalier Fund for last fall. As you can see, the male-female breakdown, in-state versus out-of-state. Engineering, so there's a good representation of students from the School of Engineering. My takeaway is that the Cavalier Fund is working. President Ryan, your vision to provide opportunities for students has taken hold, and our students are taking advantage of this unique opportunity and the experiences they are having to contribute to their experience at UVA. I think the foundational principle of the Cavalier Fund is that it provides our students the opportunity to not just survive when they are here at UVA, but to thrive. And it's been a pleasure to be able to support this program, engage with folks who've contributed to this program, and hear from our students about the experiences they've had as a result of benefiting from the Cavalier Fund. So without further ado, I'll ask Lucas and Abel to share their experiences, but let me first introduce them briefly. Lucas Lehman is a biomedical engineering student planning to graduate this fall. He's the president of the UVA Engineering Student Council and a Meriwether Lewis Fellow, as well as a member of Phi Delta Theta fraternity. Abel Alexander is a first-year student in computer sciences from Richmond, Virginia, and he is the co-founder of Dual AI, a maternal AI resource intended to connect individuals with services. Lucas?
Hi, I'm Lucas. So I wanted to share a little bit of background of who I am and why I'm here at UVA. So I grew up in Tampa, Florida. My father's a restaurant manager and my mom is a teacher in the public school realm. And they both work really hard to provide me and my sister the best opportunities in life and also instilled the importance of education. I had the privilege of attending private education K through 12 on financial aid. And then when I came to my college decision, it was really difficult because I wanted to pick the best program for my interests, a school that was exciting and fun to be at, but also a school that was financially possible. And UVA checked all those boxes. UVA gave me the experience that I wanted in the classroom and out of it, while also being able something I could make financially. So I came to UVA and I quickly learned that education expands far beyond the classroom, which is amazing, but also that comes at a financial cost. I was lucky enough to join a lot of organizations on grounds like Engineering Student Council or the Honor Committee, where there is no membership fee. I get to really give back to the university without having to incur costs. But that's not the only memberships I wanted to be a part of. I joined Phi Delta Theta in the spring of my first year, and it has been the most impactful organization I've been a part of at UVA. With that did come a cost, but I happily pay that cost because it changed my life. It encouraged me to become the best version of myself. It encouraged me to come out as gay. It encouraged me to do the things I'm passionate about at UVA, and I could not thank that experience enough. And that experience is not just for me, it's for every member. And that experience comes at a cost that we don't take lightly. Even having some of the lowest dues in the IFC, that cost can keep people from joining our organization. Having the access to the Cavalier Fund allowed me to stay in that organization without having to worry about paying my dues. A lot of our members worked over the summer and winter breaks to be able to afford our membership dues. With that, I've had the privilege of being able to serve as in a number of leadership roles within my fraternity, especially coming to the ultimate role of president in this last year. And I ran for that position under the idea that Phi Delta changed my life, and I wanted to use Phi Delta to change other people's lives. Joining or becoming president, I really did that with especially implementing the access to Cavalier Fund for all our members and making that really visible and known. A lot of our members have been able to use that and afford Phi Delta a lot easier. Additionally, as president, I was able to impact the UVA and Charlottesville community. I increased our involvement with Habitat for Humanity in the community, and we started volunteering a lot more with them. And we strengthened our partnerships across grounds, including our yearly partnership with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I really had the best experience in Phi Delta, and I was able to be even more an intentional brother and leader because of the Cavalier Fund.
Thanks, Lucas.
Hello, my name is Abel Alexander. I'm a first year at the University of Virginia, and I'm studying computer science. And growing up, I come from a low-income background, and as a first-generation student, one thing I've always lived by is making the most out of any opportunity I can get. And with that, throughout high school and into my first year at UVA, I've joined different competitions and attended different conferences to really gain my experience and make the most out of any opportunity I can get. And that has also led me to Harvard, a hackathon that I attended last semester in October of 2024. And just to clarify, hackathon is just a 24 to 48 hour coding competition where the main objective is to create a computer software project that can foster a positive impact in the community. And with that, I created just a quick overview of what I created was a 911 operator sort of dashboard where during high call volumes and crises, 911 operators can be faced with a lot of calls coming in, and that forces them to put a lot of people on hold during that time. So what we aim to do was to have the dashboard for the 911 operators to be able to see the most severe emergencies at a given time. And to do that, we used a machine learning algorithm based on millions of data sets from other emergency calls. And the 911 operator would be able to prioritize the most pressing emergencies first and be able to reach out to those people first and then be able to react to all these different emergencies accordingly. And that really helps underserved communities that might not have as much adequate access to emergency care. And through the Cavalier Fund, I had an amazing experience at this hackathon, and I would not have been able to have such an amazing experience without the Cavalier Fund. I remember I only finalized plans to actually go to Hack Harvard a few weeks out from the actual event, and around this time, like, flight prices were very expensive, and I remember weighing the opportunity that I would actually gain from the event and the flight prices that would be very hefty to actually attend the event. And through the Cavalier Fund, I saw that as sort of a helping hand in assisting me to be able to go to that hackathon and not have to really worry about the flight prices, and instead be able to make the most out of what I can gain from the hackathon.
Thank you, Lucas, and thank you, Abel. We're happy to answer. So we're open to questions you might have about the Cavalier Fund or either Lucas's or Abel's experiences. Yes, Mr. Ellis.
For either of you guys, how easy, hard was it to apply? Do you have to provide a use of funds to do this? Do you just apply for 1,000 and then somebody whittles you down, or how did it work?
So the application process was pretty straightforward. All I did was just attach sort of receipts of my flight prices, and also just describe what I would be doing and just what I would be gaining from the actual event. And
So you applied for the money as a reimbursement for something you've already done, or
Yes.
did you apply to get the money in order to go? It was after the fact?
yes, it was a reimbursement.
Same for you, Lucas?
No, for FSL and like specifically for FIDO, we have our due date on this past semester. It was March 1st. So I get like my statement of dues and I submit that statement to the Cavalier Fund through the application, and then they're able to transfer the funds into our account so that I actually don't have to like put any money out of my own to pay for it.
So you're graduating.
Yes.
Can you apply again, or is it one time a year? Or can-
Yeah, it's per year. So your graduates would not be eligible. It's only for current students.
Yeah, well, you can apply another year. Great.
How do you think that this fund has enabled you to be a better leader while you're here at UVA?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is costs. Like I work a lot of jobs outside of that, either over the summer, over winter break, or even during the school year. And I think removing that cost of where I have to work more to pay that membership fee, I can spend all that time working on my organizations and spending time being more intentional with my members and planning things for those different organizations.
Okay, thanks. This is terrific, gentlemen. Thank you. A related question to Mrs. Pillions. I was thinking, as you, Lucas, you're just about out of here. Abel, you'll be with us for a little while longer. But as you go out into your careers, how will you reflect on this and this opportunity? How do you think this might influence your thinking out in the adult world, work world?
Yeah, I can quickly say I think what I started with was that education extends far beyond the classroom, and a lot of the skills that are going to be transferable to the workforce come from all these leadership opportunities and organizations I'm a part of. I know how to plan events. I know how to communicate effectively, whether that's at the front of the room or in emails to outside organizations. And a lot of those skills I learned and honed in on and perfected in my leadership roles and within being in FIDO. So.
And for me, technical skills are something that you really just have to practice and do in order to gain really good insights about them. And Hack Harvard was invaluable for me because I was able to gain all these different skills, and that would help me throughout my career and future career choices that I may have. And that was really invaluable for me, just to be able to experience that and be able to use that going forward.
A couple, one comment and one question. First, just tremendously impressed, but had the chance for the last several days to sit with several of our students, and I'm always in awe of how much you accomplish, how well you do it, and then how you translate those skills both practically while at the university and your aspirations beyond. So kudos to you all for just jumping in and taking full advantage of the what I call the buffet of what UVA has to offer. Is there a means test that we use for these activities? I think in one conversation we talked about there used to be an honor loan fund that used to be administered by the Dean of Students Office. Does that still exist? And how do these programs marry together?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that fund. If it exists, I'll have to go find it, but I'm not aware if that still exists. I mean, we do have other sources of support for students. Like we have an emergency assistance fund, but that's specifically for emergencies. This is really but this is about engagement and these experiences, these co-curricular experiences that are sometimes undervalued, but I think, and many folks around this table probably know about their experience at UVA, that you learned a lot in the classroom with talented faculty and researchers, but you were able to apply a lot of what you learned and learn even more outside the classroom. And sometimes access to those opportunities are limited by your financial resources and means. And so this fund has a specific purpose to provide support for students who otherwise, as I mentioned earlier, would decide not to do those things because they simply can't afford it, or they're weighing, should I work or should I participate in this leadership opportunity? And I think that's sort of eliminating some of those barriers, or at least reducing them, so that you get that full educational experience. I like to call it the holistic UVA experience, which is what makes us special.
Is it like a criteria, like, do you have to be on financial aid or Pell Grant?
You have, yes, I'm sorry, you have to be eligible, you show financial need. So this is not for every student.
Okay.
And so that anytime a student applies for this, we're looking at what's the activity. We're making sure that it's a legitimate organization or student organization, and we run it through Student Financial Services to validate financial eligibility. And then the staff will disperse the funds in the appropriate manner.
And I guess so Mark, I don't know if I heard you say what the current balance is in the fund. What's the current?
Go ahead. Well, we've raised a total of 12 million commitments, and the balance for this semester is probably like $400 right now because of the demand, because it's an endowment. And so we've been using that to support it. And so, when I go out and talk to folks, the purpose of this fund resonates with people, but you can see that there's a huge demand for it. We've dispersed the entire allocated amount for this year because students have become aware of it and have presented us that there is a need for it. And so the efforts that we're making to increase donor participation, I think, are worthwhile.
12 million in commitments, but only 400 in cash
remaining because we've dispersed close to $200,000 this academic year to students.
So Kenyon, I understand that the maximum somebody can get per year is $1,000?
Yes, that's correct. $1,000. And that number was created, when we first rolled this out as a pilot, that number was lower. And so we thought to increase it a little bit, but not to the extent. We wanted to provide more students with the opportunity in this phase. The goal is to be able to increase that as we have the means to do so. But the $1,000 seemed to cover general expenses of what students were requesting.
What other questions or comments, Mr. President?
I just want to say, Lucas and Abel, thanks for sharing your stories. I'm glad to hear them, really glad to hear them. And thanks to you, Kenyon, and others who made this happen. It was more complicated to set up than I would have thought at the beginning, and getting all the criteria right and doing it in a way that actually makes it relatively easy for students to sign up was no small feat. And I am super excited about this. I feel the same way about the way I did about the Year in Wise. When we started that, I was really sure it was going to be popular, but it took a little while before it caught on, and now it's caught on, and I feel like the same thing is happening with this. And I think it's a great way to make it possible for every student at UVA, regardless of their financial need to take full advantage of what's on offer here. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Donna. Do you have a similar program at Wise and or plans to try to create one? You know, like
We
this?
have a program, but it's more of an emergency fund program. This and as I listen to it, was something that can really help the students' experience. We did not develop that, but it is a great idea because I know we have created engagement funds. So for students who can't afford to get to a conference, there are funds that we can access for that. Or we support study abroad for many students so that they can get there. But this seems a little bit different than that. But I do think it would be powerful for our students. One thing that we've seen, the example of fraternities, is that many of our fraternities have struggled because their students can't afford to pay the fees to participate in the national organization. So it's a unique idea. I think it's actually pretty special, and it could have a high impact in lives.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, it might be interesting to note that, Mark, perhaps you should introduce Abel to Goldman Sachs or Bridgewater or BlackRock, because when he sells the product for $100 million, you might have your next $50 million donor.
Abel was in, yeah.
Other questions or comments? Well, let me just say to Lucas and Abel, thank you very much for taking the time and coming and talking to us. And you should both be very, very proud of yourselves and all you've accomplished to date. And I know there's so much more to come in your lives. And so thank you for being here. And it seems that this program is one that really kind of epitomizes great and good. And thanks for bringing it to us. And Kenyon, thank you very much for all that you do with this program and any other things as well. And we appreciate you.
Thank you.
So other comments, questions before we adjourn? If not, Mr. Rector, I'll yield back the balance of our time.
Thank you very much. Do people want to take a 5-minute break or just keep going? Let's keep going. Okay, yeah, we just had a break. So we'll now turn it over to let the staff come in for buildings and grounds, and then John, you can take over. Oh, you're in Tampa. Where'd you get in high school?
I went to Jesuit High School.
Let the staff come in and then you can start.
Okay, yeah.
So you know, what restaurant did you go to?
Jimbo's Barbecue. It's on Kennedy.